The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent radio signals into the darkness. They launched probes with golden records. They built telescopes that could see galaxies billions of light years away. And for all that time, the universe gave them nothing but silence. Until the day it answered. Commander stood in the Deep Space Monitoring Station in the mountains of Korea. She was 42 years old with short gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many night shifts. The station was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the distant sound of wind against the windows. Her coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago. She did not notice. Her eyes were fixed on the main screen where something impossible was happening. "Run the scan again," she said to the young technician beside her. His hands shook as he typed. He was 24 and had joined the monitoring program because he loved science fiction movies. He never expected science fiction to become real. "Commander, I have run it 7 times," he said. "The result is the same every time." On the screen, 9,700 objects moved toward Earth. They had appeared at the edge of the solar system 4 hours ago. They were not asteroids. They were not comets. They moved in perfect formation, adjusting their paths with intelligence and purpose. They were ships. Picked up the red phone on her desk. It connected directly to the United Earth Defense Council. Her hand did not shake. She had trained for this moment her entire career. She had hoped it would never come. "This is Commander at Station 7, she said. "We have confirmed contact. Alien fleet. Approximately 9,700 vessels. They are heading for Earth. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. The voice on the other end was silent for a long moment. Then it said, "Understood. All stations are now at maximum alert. Report to Geneva immediately." Hung up the phone and looked at. The young man was pale. "What do we do?" he asked. "We do our jobs," said. "Keep tracking them. I need to know everything about those ships before I leave." 12 hours later, stood in a massive underground room beneath the Swiss Alps. The United Earth Defense Council had been created 50 years ago when humanity first started taking the possibility of alien contact seriously. The room was filled with generals, scientists, and political leaders from every nation on Earth. On the main screen, the alien fleet moved closer. High-resolution images showed their ships for the first time. They were dark purple, shaped like curved blades and covered with weapons. Each ship was at least 2 kilometers long. "They call themselves the Empire," said Director Park, the head of the council. He was 60 years old with a calm voice that never showed fear. "They sent us a message 1 hour ago." He pressed a button and an alien voice filled the room. It had been translated into English. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet. You have been observed and measured. Your world has been selected for integration into the Empire. You will surrender your planet, your resources, and your population. Resistance is not advised. Compliance will be rewarded with survival. You have 24 hours to respond." The message ended. The room was completely silent. A Russian general named was the first to speak. "What are our options?" "We have 340 ships in the Earth Defense Fleet," said Admiral Song, the commander of human military forces. She was 55 years old and had spent her life preparing for a war she hoped would never happen. "Most of them are patrol vessels and cargo transports converted for combat. We have 12 actual warships." 340 against 9,700, said. "Those are not odds. That is a death sentence." "Then we surrender," asked a diplomat from Brazil. "No," said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look. A man stepped forward. He was 38 years old with a lean face and eyes that burned with quiet fire. His name was Captain, and he commanded the patrol squadron stationed near Mars. "We do not surrender," said. "Not to threats, not to numbers, not to anyone." Director Park studied him carefully. "Captain, I appreciate your courage, But courage does not change mathematics. They have almost 10,000 warships. Each one is larger and more powerful than anything we have. Then we do not fight them the way they expect, said. He walked to the front of the room and pointed at the screen. Look at their formation. Perfect lines, perfect spacing. They expect to arrive, crush any resistance, and take what they want. They have done this before to other worlds. How do you know? Asked Admiral Song. Because they are not careful, said. Their message was arrogant. Their approach is direct. They do not expect real resistance. That is their weakness. Who had been standing quietly in the corner stepped forward. He is right. I have been studying their movement patterns. They are not scouting ahead. They are not sending probe ships. They believe this will be easy. And you think we can use that? Director Park asked. I think we have no other choice, said. We cannot win a direct battle, but we do not have to. We just have to make them bleed. We have to make the cost of taking Earth so high that they regret ever coming here. The room fell silent again. People looked at each other with fear and doubt and something else, something that might have been hope. Admiral Song stood up. What do you need? Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had accepted death and was no longer afraid. I need volunteers, he said. I need people who understand that most of us will not survive. I need pilots who will fight not to win, but to hurt. Every ship we destroy is one less ship bombing our cities. Every day we delay them is one more day for Earth to prepare. You are asking people to die, said the Brazilian diplomat. I am asking people to live, corrected, to really live, to stand for something bigger than themselves, to show the universe that humanity does not kneel. Director Park looked around the room, then he nodded. Send the response to the fleet, he said. Tell them Earth declines their generous offer. Tell them if they want this planet, they will have to take it from our cold, dead hands. The message was sent, and across the world something changed. Fear did not disappear, but it transformed. People stopped running and started fighting. Factories that made cars began making weapons. Scientists who studied medicine began studying alien biology. Children who dreamed of stars now dreamed of defending their home. Returned to his ship, he gathered his squadron and looked at their faces. 42 pilots, 42 people who had chosen to stand between Earth and destruction. The dark horizon is coming, he told them, but we will be the fire that lights it. In 72 hours, the Empire would learn something that no other species had ever taught them. Humans do not break easily. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Blade. He was tall for a nearly 3 meters, with dark purple skin and 4 eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. He had conquered 11 worlds for the Empire. Earth would be his 12th. Report, he said to his second-in-command. The primitive species has rejected our offer, officer said. They sent a message filled with defiance and crude insults. Laughed, it was a cold sound like stones grinding together. They always do. The weak species bark the loudest before they fall. How many ships do they have? Our scans show approximately 340 vessels. Most are small patrol craft. Their largest ships are less than half the size of our destroyers. Then this will be over quickly, said. Maintain formation. We will crush them and be home before the next cycle. The fleet moved through the darkness of space like a purple tide. They had traveled across the galaxy for generations, taking what they wanted from lesser species. They had never lost a conquest. They had never even been seriously challenged. They did not know what was waiting for them near Jupiter. Captain sat in the cockpit of his ship, the Silent Blade. It was a small vessel, built for speed rather than power. Around him, 41 other ships held position in the shadow of Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Status report, said into his communicator. All ships in position, said Lieutenant. She was 29 years old and the best pilot in the squadron. The gravity mines are set. The sensor disruptors are online. We are ready. Looked at the screen showing the approaching fleet. 9,700 ships. The number should have terrified him. Instead, he felt strangely calm. "Remember the plan," he said to his squadron. "We are not here to win a battle. We are here to make them afraid. Hit fast, hit hard, disappear. Use Jupiter's radiation to blind their sensors. Use the moons for cover. And whatever you do, do not fight fair." "Fighting fair is for people who can afford to lose," said. Smiled exactly. The fleet reached Jupiter's orbit 6 hours later. Admiral stood at the front of his bridge, watching the massive planet fill his screen. It was beautiful in a primitive way, all swirling storms and ancient violence. "Any sign of enemy ships?" he asked. "No," Admiral said. "Our sensors show nothing. They must be hiding closer to there." "Cowards," said. "Continue forward. We will be at Earth in 20 hours." The first ship exploded without warning. It was a destroyer at the edge of the formation. One moment it was moving smoothly through space. The next moment it was a ball of fire and twisted metal. Before anyone could react, 2 more ships exploded. "What is happening?" demanded. "Mines," said, his voice shaking. "They have planted mines in our path. Our sensors did not detect them." "Impossible. Our sensors can detect a grain of sand from 1,000 kilometers." "Not in this radiation, Admiral. Jupiter is flooding our instruments with interference. We are flying blind." Slammed his fist against his chair. "All ships reduce speed, activate defensive shields, find those mines and destroy them." But the mines were only the beginning. From the shadow of Ganymede watched the fleet slow and spread out. His traps were working. The massive ships were now exposed, their formation broken. "All units attack," he said. 42 human ships burst from their hiding places. They were tiny compared to the vessels, like insects attacking giants, but insects could sting. Ship screamed toward a cruiser. She fired her missiles at the exact moment her ship passed through a cloud of Jupiter's radiation. The targeting systems could not lock onto her. Her missiles found their target. The cruiser's engine exploded and the ship began to drift. "Direct hit," reported, moving to secondary target. Across the battlefield, human ships darted between the massive vessels. They used the moons as shields. They flew through radiation storms that would kill unprotected crews. Their ships were small enough to maneuver in ways they could not follow. "They are inside our formation," said. "They are attacking from every direction." "Then destroy them," ordered. "We have nearly 10,000 ships. They have 40. The ships opened fire. Space filled with purple energy beams. They hit nothing. The human ships were already gone, using Jupiter's gravity to sling themselves to new positions. Flew his ship through a narrow gap between 2 destroyers. Both ships fired at him. Both ships hit each other instead. One destroyer lost its shields. The other lost its bridge. 2 more down," reported. "Keep moving, never stay in one place." For 6 hours the battle continued. The fleet had overwhelming numbers, but they could not use them. Every time they formed a firing line, the humans scattered. Every time they chased individual ships, they flew into traps. By the time ordered his fleet to pull back and regroup, 200 ships had been destroyed. "This is impossible," said. He stared at the damage reports with all 4 eyes. "We lost 200 ships to 40 primitives." "They fight without honor," said. "They do not stand and face us. They bite and run like animals." "Then we will hunt them like animals," said. "Send out the pursuit squadrons, find their hiding places, burn them out." But the pursuit squadrons found nothing. The human ships had already moved, using paths through Jupiter's moons that they could not follow. Every time the thought they had cornered an enemy, the enemy was gone. Gathered his squadron in the shadow of Io. They had lost 3 ships in the battle, 3 pilots who would never see Earth again, but they had taken 200 enemy vessels with them. "We hurt them," said, But they still have over 9,000 ships. What do we do now? Looked at his pilots. They were exhausted. Their ships were damaged. They had done everything possible and it still was not enough. We do it again, he said. Every hour we delay them here is an hour Earth uses to prepare. Every ship we destroy is a ship that will not bomb our cities. We keep fighting until we cannot fight anymore. And then, asked a young pilot named. Then someone else takes over, said. Earth is not just us, is building defenses in the asteroid belt, is preparing the lunar forces. We are just the first wave. Our job is to make the second wave possible. He looked out at Jupiter, the great red eye staring back at him like an ancient god. They think this will be easy, he said. They think they will sweep through our system and take what they want, but they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know that we have been preparing for this moment for our entire history. The squadron rested for 4 hours, then they attacked again. By the time the fleet finally broke through Jupiter's orbit, they had lost 400 ships. They had expected zero resistance. They had found a nightmare. Admiral stood alone on his bridge, staring at the distant dot of Earth. For the first time in his career, he felt something he did not recognize. Later, he would learn its name. It was doubt. The asteroid belt stretched across the solar system like a river of stone and iron. For 100 years, humans had mined these rocks for precious metals. They had built stations and homes among the tumbling debris. They had made the belt their own. Now they would make it a graveyard. Commander floated in the control center of Station Omega, the largest human outpost in the asteroid belt. She had arrived 3 days ago with orders to turn the belt into a death trap for the fleet. How many weapon platforms are operational? She asked. Chief Engineer pulled up the data on his screen. He was 50 years old with thick arms and a face covered in scars from a mining accident years ago. He had spent his entire life in the belt. 1,400 platforms hidden across 8,000 asteroids, he said. Each one has missiles, rail guns, and enough explosives to crack a small moon. We also have 300 mining ships converted for combat. And the miners smiled. It was a hard smile, the smile of a man who had survived things that should have killed him. Every miner in the belt volunteered. They know these rocks better than anyone. They have been moving through asteroid fields since they were children. They are ready to fight. Nodded, she thought about the message she had received an hour ago. Squadron had delayed the fleet at Jupiter for 18 hours. They had destroyed 400 enemy ships before being forced to retreat. Only 27 human pilots survived. 27 out of 42. They had given everything they had. Now it was her turn. They will arrive in 6 hours, said. They will expect to pass through the belt quickly. They do not know we are here. We will make them regret that mistake. She turned to face the room full of miners, engineers, and volunteers who had become soldiers. Their faces were dirty and tired. Their hands were rough from years of hard work. They were not warriors, but they were human. Some of us will not survive today, said. I will not lie to you about that. They have thousands of ships. We have rocks and determination, but those rocks are our rocks. This belt is our home, and we do not let invaders pass through our home. Raised his fist, for Earth. The others joined him, for Earth. Admiral watched the asteroid belt approach on his screen. His fleet had been reduced from 9,700 ships to 9,300. The losses at Jupiter had been embarrassing but not significant. He still had overwhelming numbers. The primitives have mining stations in the belt, reported. Our scans show no military activity. They appear to be civilian targets only. Destroy them anyway, said. I want nothing left alive between us and Earth. These creatures have annoyed me enough. The fleet entered the asteroid belt in attack formation. They expected no resistance. They expected easy targets. The first wave of missiles came from everywhere at once. Hidden platforms on 1,000 asteroids opened fire simultaneously. Missiles streamed toward the ships from every direction. Rail guns sent metal projectiles at speeds that punched through shields like paper. Ambush shouted, "They have weapons hidden in the asteroids." Return fire ordered, "Destroy those platforms." The ships began shooting at the asteroids, but for every platform they destroyed, 10 more opened fire. The belt was too vast. There were too many hiding places. Watched the battle from her command station. Her screens showed the fleet struggling to advance. Ships exploded every minute, but they kept coming. "They are pushing through the outer defenses," reported. "We have destroyed 300 ships, but they are adapting." "Then we adapt too," said. "Signal the mining ships, begin Phase 2. Across the belt, 300 mining ships emerged from their hiding places. They were not combat vessels. They were designed to move asteroids, to break apart rocks, to harvest metals from space. But today they had a different purpose. Each mining ship attached itself to a large asteroid and began pushing. Using their powerful engines, they moved the rocks directly into the path of the fleet. "What are they doing?" demanded. "Why are rocks moving toward us?" "They are using their ships to push asteroids," said, his voice filled with disbelief. "They are turning rocks into weapons." "Shoot the rocks down." "There are too many, Admiral. They are coming from everywhere." The first asteroid struck a carrier. The rock was 2 kilometers wide and moving at incredible speed. The carrier's shields held for 3 seconds before collapsing. The ship broke apart like a toy. More asteroids followed. The fleet tried to dodge, but the belt was too dense. Rocks came from every angle. Ships that tried to avoid one asteroid flew into another. Personally piloted one of the mining ships. He had spent 30 years moving rocks through space. Now he used that skill to push a massive iron asteroid directly at a destroyer. "Come on, you beautiful monster," he said to the asteroid. "Let us show them what a miner can do." The destroyer fired at him. The shots went wide, confused by the radiation and debris, pushed his ship harder, guiding the asteroid until it was too late for the destroyer to escape. The collision was spectacular. The asteroid punched through the destroyer and kept going, hitting a second ship behind it. Pulled away at the last moment, his ship damaged but still flying. "2 for 1, he reported to. "Not bad for an old rock mover." The battle lasted for hours. The fleet pushed forward meter by meter, paying for every advance with blood. Human platforms ran out of missiles and switched to suicide attacks, ramming their stations into enemy ships. Mining crews died defending rocks they had worked their entire lives. Coordinated everything from Station Omega. She watched the numbers on her screen, ships destroyed, human lives lost. She felt every death like a wound in her heart. "Commander," said a young technician named, "they are breaking through the main defense line. We cannot hold them much longer." Looked at the screen. The girl was right. Despite everything they had done, the fleet was too large. They had lost over 1,000 ships in the belt, but they still had almost 8,000 remaining. "Order all surviving ships to fall back to the inner system," said. "We have done what we can here. It is time to pass the fight to the next line." She turned to face the crew of Station Omega, 20 people who had stayed with her to the end. "The lunar defenses are ready," she told them. "We'll make the pay for every kilometer. Our job was to bleed them, and we did. We destroyed 1,400 ships in this belt. That is 1,400 ships that will never reach Earth." "What about us?" asked. Smiled sadly. "Our station is too damaged to run, but we can still fight. We have one more thing to give." She activated the self-destruct sequence. Station Omega began moving toward the nearest carrier. "For Earth," she said. The station hit the carrier at full speed. The explosion lit up the asteroid belt like a new star. Admiral watched the destruction from his flagship. His fleet had been reduced to 7,900 ships. Almost 2,000 lost to rocks and primitives. They are insane, said quietly. They throw their lives away like they mean nothing. No, said. He was beginning to understand something terrible. They throw their lives away because they believe they mean everything. They die so others can live. They sacrifice so their world can survive. He stared at the distant blue dot of Earth. What kind of species does that? He asked. He would find out soon enough. The moon had been humanity's first step into space. For generations, people had looked up at its silver face and dreamed of touching it. They had built bases there, cities underground, and weapons platforms that could defend Earth from any threat. Now the moon would become humanity's last fortress before the enemy reached home. Flight Commander stood in the Lunar Command Center deep beneath the moon's surface. She was 35 years old with sharp eyes and hands that had piloted everything from cargo ships to experimental fighters. She had been preparing for this day her entire career. Status report, she said to her officers. We have 180 ships remaining in the defense fleet, said Lieutenant. The survivors from Jupiter and the Belt have joined us. We also have 500 drone swarms ready to deploy and 2,000 missile batteries on the lunar surface. And the underground shelters. 50 million civilians have been evacuated to the deep bunkers. They are as safe as we can make them. Nodded, she looked at the screen showing the approaching fleet. After the battles at Jupiter and the asteroid belt, 7,900 enemy ships remained. Still an overwhelming force. Still enough to destroy everything humanity had ever built. But those ships were not the same confident armada that had entered the solar system. They had lost almost 2,000 vessels. They had been humiliated by a species they considered primitive, and they were angry. They will not underestimate us anymore, said. They will come at us with everything they have. They want to end this quickly and brutally. We need to make sure they cannot. A familiar voice came through the communication system. We are ready to fly again. Smiled despite herself, and his surviving pilots had reached the moon 6 hours ago. They were exhausted, their ships barely functional, but they had refused to stop fighting. Are you sure you can fly, old man? Asked. I will fly until my ship falls apart around me, said. Then I will find another ship. Good, I need your squadron to lead the drone swarms. You know how to think now. Use that knowledge. Understood, we will not let them pass. Admiral stood on his bridge as the moon grew larger on his screen. His fleet had been hurt badly, but they were still powerful. 8,000 ships against less than 200. The numbers were still in his favor. All ships prepare for final assault, he ordered. I want the lunar defenses destroyed within 3 hours, then we take Earth. Admiral said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have surprised us before. They may have more traps waiting. I do not care about traps, said. His voice was cold with anger. We have lost enough ships to these primitives. It ends today. Full attack, overwhelming force. Leave nothing standing. The fleet accelerated toward the moon. Watch them come. She felt fear in her stomach, but she pushed it down. Fear was useless now. Only action mattered. All units, this is command, she said into the fleet-wide channel. The enemy is approaching. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember everyone who died at Jupiter and the Belt. They gave us time. Now we use that time, make every shot count. Make every second matter for Earth. For Earth, came the reply from thousands of voices. The battle for the moon began. Drone swarms launched first. 500 clusters of automated weapons, each containing 100 individual drones. They spread across space like clouds of angry insects. They had faced missiles. They had faced asteroids. They had never faced anything like this. The drones did not attack directly. They swarmed. They surrounded ships and attached themselves to engines, weapons, and sensor arrays. They exploded in small bursts that would not destroy a ship alone but would cripple it piece by piece. "What are these things?" demanded as his fleet slowed. Ships were losing power all around him. Engines were failing. Weapons were going offline. "Small automated weapons," reported. "Too small for our main guns to target. They are disabling our ships rather than destroying them." "Then use point defense systems." "They are already overwhelmed, Admiral. There are too many of them." Flew through the chaos, directing his squadron and the drone swarms with expert precision. He knew how the ships operated now. He knew their blind spots, their weak points, their moments of hesitation. "Squadron 3, target that carrier's communication array," he ordered. "Squadron 7, hit the flagship's engines. Keep them confused, keep them scared." The human ships darted between the swarming drones, adding their own attacks to the chaos. They were faster than more maneuverable. They had learned from Jupiter and the Belt. But they had learned too. "Concentrate fire on the human command ships," ordered. "Ignore the drones, kill the pilots." Purple energy beams sliced through space. A human cruiser exploded. Then another. They were adapting, focusing their overwhelming firepower on targets that mattered. "We are losing ships," reported two. "They are targeting our command structure." "Then we change the structure," said. "Order all ships to operate independently. No central command. No patterns, pure chaos." The human fleet scattered. Every ship became its own commander. Every pilot made their own decisions. They could not predict what they would do because the humans themselves did not know. Launched her own ship from the lunar surface. She had never intended to command from safety. She was a pilot. Pilots flew. Her ship joined the battle, weaving through the crossfire with skill that came from a lifetime of training. She destroyed 3 fighters before they even knew she was there. "You want chaos," she said to herself. "I will show you chaos." On the moon's surface, the missile batteries opened fire. 2,000 platforms launched everything they had at the fleet. The sky above the moon filled with fire. Ships began falling. Dozens, then hundreds. The combination of drones, human ships, and surface weapons was too much to handle all at once. "Pull back," ordered. "Regroup and reorganize." But pulling back was not easy. The humans did not let them go. Every retreating ship was chased, harassed, damaged. The drones followed them like hungry wolves. The battle lasted for 8 hours. When it finally paused, the fleet had been reduced to 5,500 ships. They had lost 2,400 vessels trying to pass the moon. Admiral sat alone in his command chamber. His hands were shaking. He had never experienced anything like this. "Admiral," said quietly from the doorway, "the officers are asking what we should do. Should we retreat? Report failure to the Empire?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "No, we continue. We still outnumber them. Earth is right there. We have come too far to stop now. The humans will keep fighting. They do not surrender." "Then we will destroy them all," said. "Every ship, every station, every city. We will burn their world until nothing remains. If they will not kneel, they will die." He stood and returned to his bridge. "All ships prepare for final assault on Earth. No mercy, no prisoners, extinction." The fleet moved toward the blue planet. They were wounded, angry, and desperate. But so were the humans. And humans had one more surprise waiting. Earth hung in the darkness of space like a blue jewel. Clouds swirled across its surface. Oceans glittered in the sunlight. Billions of lives existed on that small world, completely dependent on what happened in the next few hours. The fleet approached. 5,500 ships, battered and burned but still deadly. Admiral stood on his bridge with all 4 eyes fixed on the planet below. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Target their major cities first. Show them the price of resistance." Admiral Waite said, "Look." On the screen, something impossible was happening. Ships were rising from Earth, not military vessels, cargo ships, passenger transports, Mining shuttles, fishing boats, anything that could fly was launching into space. "What is this?" asked. "They are sending everything they have," whispered. "Civilian ships, unarmed vessels, they are all coming to fight." Director Park stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around him, the surviving military leaders of Earth watched the screens with tears in their eyes. "How many ships?" he asked. "Over 4,000 civilian vessels have launched," an officer reported. "They are armed with whatever they could find, mining lasers, industrial tools. Some of them just have cargo holds full of explosives." They were not asked to do this. No, sir, they volunteered, every single one. They said they would rather die fighting than watch their world burn. Park closed his eyes. He thought about everything humanity had accomplished, their art and music, their science and dreams, their capacity for love and sacrifice. "Coordinate them with our remaining military ships," he said. "If we are going to fight, we fight together." Ship had survived the lunar battle. She was exhausted, her vessel damaged, but she was still flying. Around her, the survivors of 3 defensive lines gathered for the final stand. His voice came through her communication system. He was still alive too, though his squadron had been reduced to 11 ships. "This is it," he said. "Everything we have, everything we are." "Are you afraid?" asked. "Terrified, but I was afraid of Jupiter too. Fear does not matter, only what we do with it." The human fleet formed up, 120 military ships, 4,000 civilian vessels. They faced 5,500 warships. The numbers were still against them. They did not care. "All ships," Park's voice came through every speaker on every vessel. "This is Director Park. You know what we face. You know the odds, but you came anyway. Every single one of you chose to be here. That choice is what makes us human. That choice is why we will win." He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was steady. "Attack." The final battle for Earth began. Led the first wave. Her military ships punched through the formation, creating chaos and confusion. Behind her, civilian vessels poured into the gaps. A cargo ship loaded with explosives rammed into a destroyer. The pilot was a grandmother named who had spent 40 years moving freight between Earth and Mars. Her last words were a prayer for her. Mining vessels used their industrial lasers to cut through armor. The lasers were never designed for combat, but they worked. Ships began losing pieces, then systems, then everything. Fishing boats from the Pacific Ocean attacked fighters. They were tiny ships meant for catching tuna. They died by the dozens, but each one that died took enemies with them. Admiral watched his fleet crumble. He could not understand what he was seeing. "They are throwing themselves at us," he said. "Unarmed ships, civilian ships, they know they will die." "Admiral, our losses are accelerating," reported. "We have lost another 500 ships in the last hour. The humans are not stopping. They just keep coming." "Then we keep fighting. We still have more ships than they do." "Admiral, look at them," pointed at the screen. "They are smiling. They are dying and they are smiling. What kind of creature smiles while dying?" Did not have an answer. Ship took a direct hit. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit. His engines were failing, his weapons were gone, and his shields were down. "Eject," shouted through the communicator. "Your ship is finished." "Not yet," said. He aimed his dying vessel at the nearest carrier. "I still have one weapon left." "Do not do this. We need you." "You need Earth more. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we did not kneel." His ship hit the carrier at full speed. The explosion took out the carrier and 2 destroyers beside it. Screamed his name. Then she turned her anger on the fleet. She fought like a demon, destroying everything in her path. The battle raged for hours. Ships fell on both sides. The space around Earth filled with debris and fire. But slowly, impossibly, the numbers began to shift. The fleet had started with 5,500 ships. Now they had 3,000, then 2,000, then 1,000. The humans would not stop. Every time a ship died, two more took its place. Volunteers launched from Earth in anything that could fly. They came in rockets built in garages. They came in experimental vessels that had never been tested. They came in ships held together by hope and determination. Admiral watched his flagship's shields fail. His ship was surrounded by human vessels, each one firing everything it had. Admiral said, his voice was calm now, accepting, "It is over, we have lost." Stared at the blue planet that had cost him everything. He had conquered 11 worlds. He had never lost. How, he asked, how did they do this? We had almost 10,000 ships. They had nothing. They had each other, said. They fought not for conquest or glory. They fought for their home, for their families, for their future. The flagship shook as human weapons tore through its hull. There is something else, said quietly. Something we never understood. They are not afraid of death. They are afraid of giving up. To them, surrender is worse than dying. Closed his eyes. We chose the wrong enemy. Yes, we did. The flagship exploded. Admiral died, never understanding the species he had tried to conquer. The battle ended 2 hours later. Of the 9,700 ships that had come to Earth, none survived. Not a single one. Floated in her damaged ship, watching the debris field that used to be an invasion fleet. She was crying. She did not know if the tears were from joy or grief. Billions of people on Earth looked up at the sky. They saw the flashes of light that meant the battle was over. They did not know yet if they had won or lost. Then the message came. This is Flight Commander to Earth. The enemy fleet has been destroyed. All 9,700 ships, none endured. The world erupted in celebration. People poured into the streets. Strangers hugged each other. Tears flowed freely. But in the command centers and the surviving ships there was silence. They knew the cost of victory. Thousands of ships had been lost. Millions of people had died. Jupiter, the Belt, the Moon, and Earth orbit were graveyards now. Director Park addressed the world from his bunker. Today we won, he said. But we won because ordinary people did extraordinary things. Miners became soldiers. Fishermen became warriors. Grandmothers became heroes. They gave everything so we could survive. He paused. His voice was heavy with grief. We will never forget them. We will build monuments to their sacrifice. We will tell their stories for 1,000 generations. And we will make sure this never happens again. The galaxy watched the battle's aftermath with horror and fascination. Earth had been expected to fall in days. Instead, they had destroyed an invasion fleet without losing a single civilian on the ground. The Empire sent a message 1 week later. It was short. Earth is to be designated as a protected system. No vessel will approach. No contact will be made. The humans are not to be disturbed. Other species sent different messages. Messages of respect. Messages of admiration. Messages asking how they could learn from humanity's example. Earth had paid a terrible price for survival, but they had sent a message to the universe that would echo through history. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not break. And anyone who comes to take their world will find that none endured.